Hello, I'm Charlie Brooker and welcome to So Wrong It's Right, a panel show about Britain's favourite subject, failure. We're here to celebrate life's biggest balls-ups, the sort of massive mistakes that end up turning full circle and becoming perverse kinds of triumph. The Germans have a word for this phenomenon, Fullen Circle Perversum Triumphung. Kipling, of course, had a famous quote on how to accept failure with dignity. Shut up and eat a cherry bakewell. With me tonight to snatch defeat from the jaws of failure are my guests, the dismal Rufus Hound, the deplorable Victoria Coren, and BAFTA-winning David Mitchell. I'll be asking them a series of questions about the worst things in the world and awarding a point to whoever I think has given the best answer. So without any further ado, let's take a look at the scores so far. You're currently all lying in third place with 0 points. The stench of defeat is sickening, frankly. It's a little disappointing, but there's still everything to play for as we go into round one. Which is called Wrong Time, Wrong Place, in which I'll be asking my guests to delve into their own calamitous pasts to come up with the worst thing that's happened to them in a certain situation. This week's theme is, it's holidays. Victoria, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you on holiday?
Well, I have been on a Club 1830 holiday.
I don't put you and the phrase Club 1830 holiday in the same universe.
That's very kind of you to say. I did go. You can guess whether I went because I wanted to get laid a lot or I was covering it for the Daily Telegraph. But I went as... I was quite...
Surely both.
And considering it was for the Daily Telegraph, did they think it was a reenactment of the year 1830?
But nobody has any sex on the menu, but they're sort of drinking holidays. It was...
Sounds all right.
It was just... and nobody's 18 either. It was a sort of concrete box full of vomiting children. And it was... You drank all day. The one thing that freaked me out immediately is at breakfast they gave you this drink called orange. But it wasn't orange juice or orange... It was just a glass of orange. I think it had rum in it. And all day people drank. It was a sort of a sex abstention holiday, because people were just insensible with drink. But the thing that was the weirdest thing that anybody said to me while I was there, and it didn't really depress me at the time, but it does now. There was this chap, I remember, he just left school. It was a celebration holiday. And he said, you know what's great about leaving school is I'm going to get my own place. It's really nice for my dad, because he's worked his whole life, he's brought me up, it's been all responsibility now, he can relax, enjoy, his old age and, look forward to having some grandchildren. And I said, how old's your dad? And he said, he's 32.
Did you go on your own or with friends?
I took a friend who... We're not really friends anymore. I said, it's really good, I've got this holiday and we're going to get it free with the Daily Telegraph. It was awful. You sit in a room and there's sort of buckets of drink, all different drinks poured in a bucket. And people just, literally, just are lying on the floor vomiting. That's the essence of the... Although you could probably get pregnant from the hotel swimming pool. God knows that. But, I mean, they just drink themselves unconscious and then they get flown home in an air ambulance.
It does. It kind of sounds all right. It sounds like some form of treatment.
Considering that this is meant to be your worst holiday, you didn't pay for it. How can that possibly be bad? Let's find out from normal, honest-to-goodness people who here would like a free holiday. I rest my case, Charlie Brooker.
The thing is, though, if you haven't paid for something, you're never going to appreciate it. That's the trouble.
That raises a lot of questions.
All sorts of things you can conclude from that.
David, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you on holiday?
I've not had very traumatic experiences on holiday, really, but it was sitting in a former church in Swansea that had been converted into a cinema, which was called the 1, 2, 3, because they named their screens 1, 2 and 3. And watching Dumbo. And while it poured with rain outside and while steam slowly rose from everyone else in the cinema. Probably me as well, but I was blaming them.
I think that sounds lovely.
That does sound lovely.
It's not lovely, there's nothing lovely about it.
Paradiso.
Well, no, there's nothing lovely about it. The place is incredibly sort of muggy and humid. There was no rake for the seating. I don't know why I'm gesturing, this is a radio programme. But it's like you sort of sit on chairs and on a flat, in a place, once a place of worship.
I went on a holiday once which consisted of... It was a 3-day trip to Spain on a car ferry. There and back, and there was no entertainment. No,
on a car ferry to Spain? So
yes.
It took 5 days to get there.
It took 3 days. It was a day and a half there and a day and a half back. And but there was a cinema on board, and I think this is the worst cinema. So there was a cinema on board where it was showing Mortal Kombat the movie. Rufus, can you do any worse?
No. The only thing I had by way of competition was... just when I started getting paid work as a stand-up, I was able to use some of that and go on a 2-week holiday to Tunisia with the girl that I hadn't been going out with, then had been going out with, then hadn't been going out with, then was going out with.
That's a long way of saying on-off girlfriend.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to do is labour the point of
Very successfully.
Thank you very much. Just how on-off it was, because this was meant to be the 2 weeks where finally we put our differences behind us. But what actually happened was, it was... I don't know if anybody's been to Tunisia, but there's not a great deal to do. But outside of the walls of the hotel, the girl I was with was very fair-haired, and that is clearly something of an exotic thrill to the locals. So any time she left, she basically got felt up. And if we were in the souks and things like that, she was just permanently being sort of poured at. So she didn't really feel that, that she wanted to leave the hotel. So we basically developed our own brand of all-inclusive Stockholm syndrome. Where we were sort of penned in. And rather than this being a uniquely bonding experience that saw the relationship last, it was then she realised she had a totally captive audience to plough over every minute detail about why we'd got together and why we'd broken up and who I'd seen in the mid-time. Until it literally got to the point where I said, we can't stay in the hotel anymore. And I told her it was because there had to be more to Tunisia than we were seeing. But it was actually because I genuinely hoped she was going to get abducted.
That's horrible.
But that, Charlie Brooker, is how bad that holiday was. And at no point did my grandparents offer me a Werther's original or somebody else pay for it.
I think you were... I mean, what I want to know is... who had you been seeing during the time apart? Because, I mean, if you actually took the relationship seriously and cared about her and wanted a future, you would have just waited, wouldn't you? You'd have sat and waited for her. Were you... I mean, if you were out every night, asking people on dates, seeing other people, you know, you didn't care, you didn't mean anything. You put yourself in a position where she's asked you these reasonable questions.
And this...
Is this taking you back?
This, ultimately, Charlie, is why all of my friends are men.
Well, I'd say that all things considered, I'd say I'm going to award a point to David because misery is relative. Let's not forget that. Well, we'll move on now to round 2, if we may, which is called Do Your Worst. It's a test of my guest's capacity for creative wrongdoing. This week, I'll be asking my guests to pitch me an idea for the most terrible reality TV show. I don't mean bad in that it wouldn't work, because none of them do, but bad in that human society would have to degenerate by about 80% in order for it to be considered vaguely acceptable. My favourite terrible idea wins a point, and a 32-part series on ITV4. Rufus, what's your pitch?
What I found with these shows, broadly speaking, is that you start from the title and work backwards. The title itself has to be enough to draw us in, which is why you get things like Dog Borstal. I've tried to come up with the title and work my way backwards. So my suggestion is Blaze of Granny. There was a show not that long ago that dealt sensitively with the issue of euthanasia, but I believe that the British television public have now had that dealt with sensitively, and they're ready for a slightly more prime-time Saturday night style approach. So, essentially, Vernon Kay...
I like it already.
Introduces a series of elderly people who have got incurable diseases, and they then pick a way to end their own lives.
I assumed when you said it was Blaze of Granny that they all had to die by fire.
That's where you'd be wrong, David.
I'm disappointed. I don't want to see them injected. I want to see them burnt.
Oh, no! This is where the next format point really comes into its own. Because the most spectacular ending of one's own life of the night wins
a point.
£10,000 on offer. So I'm imagining...
£10,000 for who?
The families.
Oh, I see. So it's got a feel-good end?
Oh, yeah.
OK.
So basically, the families all stood behind Eunice from Rotherham, and Vernon says, "So, Eunice, what's it going to be?" And she says, "Tonight, Vernon, I'm going to be kicked to death by a donkey." Bring out the donkey!
Is there going to be a panel of judges like X Factor?
No, phone vote.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was going to say, because it's going to be hard. I'd like to see somebody inhale a drain pipe full of bees. I'd like to see that.
You know, Charlie, it's that kind of thinking that could win you £10,000.
That's certainly intriguing.
It would give it a dark twist, because what they always say on the X Factor is, I would never have had the confidence to apply to this show, but my family insisted that I did.
In my defence, may I just point out how that has clearly captured the public imagination. Looking around this room now, there isn't a man or woman in this room who isn't thinking, how would I go?
Thank you very much, Rufus. Victoria, do you believe you could top that?
Well, it's sort of yes and no, because the thing is, in a way, the fact that it captures the public imagination, it's really quite a good idea for a reality show.
I reckon anything can capture the public's imagination. I reckon the public's imagination's stupid, if you like.
Famous people drawn on flannels, they'd watch that.
I haven't got nearly such a sort of baroque, thought-out idea. I mean, as you say, it's very difficult to top things that already exist. And I was going to say, I don't know if you know, there is already a reality show called Help Me, Anthea, I'm Infested.
Yes.
Which is a show in which people that have, you know, beetles or ants or rats, I think, possibly in the house, Anthea Turner goes around and cleans it out. And I was thinking, well, Anthea Turner, unfortunately, her husband has gone bankrupt, so she's obviously going to be available for more work. So I was really just thinking of ideas for her. I haven't got the whole picture. It's just help me, Anthea, I've got a verruca. I thought could make a show. But just small things, because, you know, there's a recession, so everything's going to be smaller and more domestic.
What, help me, Anthea, I've dropped a pen?
Help me, Anthea, I'm 5 minutes late for a meeting. Help me, Anthea, I'm nearly out of Marmite. I'm worried it's going to run out. And there's just this one piece of toast. But I think...
In fact, you wouldn't need to televise it. Just get work for Anthea Turner as a servant.
And isn't there a flaw in the plan of Help Me, Anthea, I'm Infested? If you wake up one day and realise you've got rats, and then you phone Anthea Turner, who helps you get rid of those rats, now you've got Anthea Turner.
Yeah,
and that is worse.
What do you have to send after Anthea Turner? A lion. Then you've got lions. You have to get Vernon Kay.
Well, what do you send after Kay?
A tiger.
Now you make it sound good. My whole point is I'm not going to try and sell you on, and it'll be full of this and that, and that's going to be a bad show. That's it. Help me, Anthea, I've got a verruca. She turns out, you know, you show her the verruca, you sit and talk about it for half an hour, the show's over.
But
don't tell me that's not the worst idea.
I think this show should be ethically questionable, so she'd have to nibble off the verruca. That's immediate gold.
But there are shows that are actually so boring that what they are is just footage of things that would happen anyway. And I don't mean the football. But no, I mean, what I'm specifically thinking of is the programme Homes Under the Hammer. Two people say, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some houses that are going to be sold at auction as opposed to by the conventional method, and look at the house and say, yeah, well, obviously it needs a bit of work, but they might get it at a bargain price because it's being auctioned rather than being sold by the conventional method. And then we'll go to the auction, see what it fetches, which is a little bit more than they reckoned usually, but less than if they'd been selling it by the conventional method. And then we interview the person who bought it, and they say, no, we're quite pleased we got it for less because we went to auction. It wasn't sold but by the conventional method. And so we're hoping to do it up and then sell it probably actually by the conventional method. Now, that's all things that are just happening anyway, and they've just chosen to film. And you don't even need to involve Anthea or a Veruca at all. It's just, you know, you might say, just find someone on the street, say, what are you doing? You're going to work. OK, it's people going to work. Where do you work? Well, I work in an office. OK, do you usually take this route? Yes, I'm just about to get on the bus. Following them on the bus.
So you're annoyed by the idea of documentaries?
I'm not annoyed. The idea of all documentaries.
That's a bloody good point.
But you're just saying, what you've said is you're annoyed that they didn't meddle enough in the process of the auction.
No,
and...
I'm not annoyed.
What did you want them to do?
I'm not annoyed that they didn't meddle enough. I suppose what I'm annoyed by is their choice of subject. You know, rather than the documentary about the bloke that walked between the two twin towers in New York, it's quite an interesting thing to do. Selling a house at auction rather than by the conventional method.
But they have to put this on every day. If they had a daredevil...
No, they don't.
Well, come on then, smarty pants. What's your idea for a reality show?
Yeah, it's always a worrying cue, that. Come on then, smarty pants. Rudeness isn't good. You wouldn't call me smarty pants in real life. Yeah, on a rate, you'd be very nice. Hello, David, thanks for coming and doing the show. Let's have a cup of tea. He was all sweetness and light down in the dressing room, but now, under the power of the media, it's all smarty pants. See what we're doing? We're all making it worse. So, my idea for a show is where somebody has to lose their entire circle of friends through rudeness and unpleasantness and being as cutting as possible, so that those people are so offended they refuse to speak to them anymore. And when they have lost their last friend, a bit like Brewster's Millions, but instead of losing their money, they're losing their friends. When they have lost their last friend, they're utterly cut off and alone as the biggest arsehole who ever lived. Then they get introduced to a whole new circle of more glamorous friends. They get a pot of money and are allowed to live in a yacht. And are presented to the country as a success story. This is how you succeed. You are horrible to everyone and cutting and rude, and they give you a nice sandwich and you go, oh, I can't believe you made me a sandwich.
That is simple and completely horrible.
Thank you.
I've got an idea for a show called Heaven is a Place on Earth, where you find people who are undergoing operations and you wait until they come round and then you convince them they died on the operating table, and you've got them met by John Lennon and Albert Einstein, you know, people in masks, and you see how long you can maintain the pretense. But I would say that for raw, visceral appeal, I'd say Rufus's Blaze of Granny deserves a point. This next round is called This Putrid Modern Hell. I'll be asking each of my guests to nominate the modern misery that most gets on their wick. By modern, I mean any annoyance from the rise of Jeremy Spake onwards. He's very much the 9/11 of modern irritants. The world has never been the same since. That's my benchmark. As ever, my favourite answer wins a point. So, David, these days, what annoys you?
I am definitely annoyed by people who keep telling me what an opportunity the internet is. People saying that the internet is exciting, it's an opportunity, you can get your stuff, by which I think they mean jokes, to lots of different people in different ways, and just generally explore this fantastic world that doesn't exist, like some kind of entrepreneur. And I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I want to make comedy shows in a system that already exists, please. I want everyone to have to watch BBC One or BBC Two or ITV, and for me to be on one of those. I don't want to be on them now that hardly anyone watches them, because they can watch anything or stay at home on their computer looking at cats on skateboards.
So the internet?
No, not the internet in itself.
People
evangelise. There are lots of good things on the internet. You can find out when trains are leaving. It's sort of mainly what it's for, I think.
Isn't progress terrible?
That is what David's saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Look, I'm not saying...
Change is bad.
I'm not saying all change is bad. I'm not saying don't cure cancer.
You're just afraid. Of
course I'm afraid.
Scared of the internet.
I'm scared of the future. I'm scared of the past. I'm nervous at the moment.
Well, OK, so basically what you don't like about modern life is the moment. You don't like anything before or after.
No, I'm not. That was just a sort of general remark. I'm not nominating everything. That annoys me.
Fair enough. Rufus.
I'm a stand-up comedian, Charlie Brooker, and as such, I do quite a lot of driving. So I would like to nominate the inadherence to the basic 3-lane motorway principle.
Right. See, this interests me. I don't drive a car, and my whole life people have been banging on about people hogging the middle lane. Why are they in the middle lane hoggers, middle lane hoggers? I've never met one. They must exist. And I swear, if I ever learn to drive, I'm going to be one of them.
I don't even understand how the motorway works. I can't drive either.
The problem is, Charlie, nobody else seems to.
But how does it work?
Right, you've got your 3 lanes.
Yeah.
Now,
You're supposed to just stay in the middle one, right?
Do you want to be in my pilot for Blaze of Granny? Basically, if you think that the motorway should only be 1 lane, that is the correct way of thinking about it, and that is the lane on the left. So everybody drives in the lane on the left.
That's the slow lane.
No, it's not the slow lane! It's not the slow lane! This is the problem. People think, oh, it's the slow lane. I don't want to be going very slow. and that's not right.
Victoria.
This is what I hate. Public information adverts that show me something revolting in order to scare me out of doing something that I don't do. My particular least favourite at the moment is that one you see in the cinema where the man pulls the rat out of his mouth. Have you seen that? He sort of belches up a rat. It's disgusting. And it's to tell you, don't buy illegal drugs on the internet or by mail order. And the voiceover says the drugs bought on the internet could contain rat poison. First of all, rat poison is not the same as a rat. The pill doesn't contain a rat. That's the first thing. Second, I don't buy illegal drugs on the internet. I never have, I never will, I'm never going to. Why? I'm sitting there, I'm quite happy, I've got my Revels, I'm pleased, I've just had, it's the orange one, I like that one, so it's good news. Now I've got to see a man vomiting up a rat. There's another one. Speaking of driving, seatbelts. I always wear a seatbelt, I always wear one. I switch on the television, do you not wear a seatbelt? Maybe you'd like to watch a man's pancreas exploding. This is a situation. I don't do these things. I'm being shown something revolting. I'm being punished for something I haven't done. I don't like it.
I don't know if they still show. I don't like the one where the little girl is under the tree and she bends herself back into life and then and slides along her back into the middle of the road and complains that if you'd hit her at 30 she'd survive, if you hit her at 40 she would die. So why doesn't she just run away at 10 miles an hour when she sees the car? The stupid cow. Instead of lying around and moaning. OK, well, so, as someone who hates pretty much everything, this round is a difficult decision, but I'm going to have to go with, I think, Victoria. Victoria. On to the final round, random wrongness, which is a quick-fire round testing my guests' capacity for spontaneous error. As always, the wrongest answer to each question wins a point. Time starts now. What's the worst opening line to a sci-fi novel?
I've got one. Zafrak stood on the bridge, the plasma from the landing gear still fizzing around the ship. So, he thought to himself, this is Croydon.
Pretty bad.
It's, I had a semicolon.
That's 3 lines all staggeringly ill-punctuated. I haven't ever read a science fiction novel.
Hence the fact that it's a bad first sentence, I suppose.
Thank you so much.
No.
To me, you know, they've lost me once the bad line is on the cover, genre sci-fi. I've never looked beyond that. I don't even know. Smeg, said Rimmer. That is my guess. And how...
1984.
Well, no, that was sci-fi. I haven't read it anyway, but it's sci-fi? That's not really sci-fi.
There aren't any space aliens in it.
There aren't any
I have
aliens.
read it. No space aliens. Any minute now, the aliens are going to land. No. It's just moaning about the Earth. And, you know, it turned out it wasn't that bad at all. It was right. I was living in 1984. It's fine. Had an irritating afternoon in a cinema over it.
Well, I think that's a point to Rufus. What's the worst thing you've ever paid money for?
I've got one. It's those cash machines where they charge you £1.50. I think now £1.99. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm spending I'm getting nothing except my own money, but less of my own money than I'm spending. So I would have to be worse than a senior banker at business to think that was good. And also, they're worse cash machines than the ones. They're not even in a proper wall, usually. They're like a sort of little object in a horrible newsagent. So that sort of thing. So it's not even the infrastructure. There isn't the brick. It's not in the side of a bank. This is... You know.
You're paying for the convenience of having money magically placed into your hand by a robot.
Don't try and make it sound exciting. Is that the beginning of your sci-fi novel? A magic robot put money in my hand. And I had to have sex with the magic robot. Because this is a horrible future where robots pay humans for sex.
I would say I'm going to give a point to David because paying money for your own money is pretty poor. What's the worst thing you could say to someone on meeting them at a party?
I want a baby.
That does depend on the party, really.
No, really, I've tried it in a lot of different parties. It's never...
I'm going to give you a point.
Oh, thank you.
What's the worst advertising slogan for a fast food restaurant?
Eat fast, die young.
Not bad.
I was just... it's all right, this year's mouse has already been found.
Come for the food, stay for the warmth.
I think sometimes the names are bad when you get those knockoff KFC places. I remember seeing one that was called Memorable Fried Chicken. Really? Didn't instill confidence.
My God, you couldn't believe that, though.
I'm going to give a point to David for come for the food, stay for the warmth. That noise means we've reached the end of the round and indeed the game. Having clocked up the most points, this week's highest scoring contestant is David. Well done, David. You've won nothing. Thanks to all my guests, David Mitchell, Victoria Coren and Rufus Hound. I've been Charlie Brooker. Now go away.
So Wrong It's Right was produced by Alan Evans and it was a Zeppotron production for BBC Radio 4.